Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Vision in Action Live. We have a presentation today on retirement economics and a discussion with Cynthia Johnson, owner of Rendezvous Press Media and head of World Art Day here in the United States. Renaissance in retirement economics. What does that really mean? Well, one of the most important parts of being able to afford the retirement of your choice is economics in founding. And it pays us to know what the plan is and how well we are prepared to execute that plan. So we're going to run through some numbers today. This is maybe a little dense and a little detailed, but there are residual resources for you on the website that will allow you to do this on a personal basis. First of all, if you were in your 40s thinking about retirement, or maybe even earlier, this is the kind of advice you would have had from various sources. One that is, by the time you reach your mid-60s, you have 10 times your current income as investments and net worth resources. Also, that you could be expected to spend up to 80% of that pre-retirement income. So let's say your income was $100,000. The first rule would have said you need $1 million in investments or net income or net resources for retirement. And what Sexton is telling you is that 80,000 would be a spending level you might anticipate for your retirement. Another spending advisory is called the 4% rule, where of your total net assets, in the first year, you draw 4%, and then in the subsequent year, you withdraw 4% plus the increase for inflation, cost of living adjustment. And normally to us, on a run rate basis, that's about 3%. And then you would do that again if it's 3% the following year. Well, we're talking about where you're at in terms of you're now 65, and this is a management problem. So let's take a look at what that looks like by the numbers. One of the things you have to understand is how long can we be expected to need our resources and be in retirement? So unfortunately, we have to look at the unpleasant issue of how long will we be around. This particular graph is called the Longevity Visualizer, and it's by the U.S. Social Security Agency. And you can get a copy of this program and do your own estimates by plugging in the numbers. So for us to know how long our net worth has to last, what our retirement expenses might be, how Social Security is going to work through our retirement to end of life, we really need to know how long that period is. So this demonstrates this longevity visualizer is set up for a person who's 62, was born in 1962, and is expected to pass sometime between age 85 and 97. 85 is the median. That means half the people will have already expired before this age of 85, and half the people will expire after. At the 95th percentile, there's very few people that get beyond that. So that's our upper limit. So sometime between that. This next thing is a bit of an eye chart, so I'm going to walk you through it. This is from the Federal Reserve, Social Security, and U.S. Census Bureau, and all these figures are 2023. So if we looked in the left side, what's there in green, and you probably can't even see the number, says that all your retirement assets give you an income of about $53,000. Your Social Security on average is about $22,000. So net, the average for retirees is about $75,000. Now, let me also speak to averages versus means. 80% of the wages paid are in the upper 20% of the workforce. So we have a very highly skewed economy. When you do averages, it tends to drive that number for everyone up to the right, and it looks a lot better. The mean is the difference, the halfway point between the lowest general salary, average salary, and the highest. And so that's more indicative of really how what the population is going to have to deal with, because that's the 80% of the workforce that is not at the top end of earnings. So to put that in context, that's 75,000 income per year in retirement for average. The median is actually only $48,000. So hang on to that idea. When you look at net worth, the average is 1.7 million. And by comparison, the median is about $400,000. So you can see why that's so different. If we look at these thumb rules, that let's say I'm going to make $75,000 a year in my average income, my net worth at that point, which is 10x, would be 938K or so. So about $1 million. So when you see the press saying you need to have $1 million to retire, that's what they're referring to. An average net worth of 1.7 million kind of makes that a pretty easy thing to do. But remember, the median net worth is only 410,000. If you look at the 4% rule, and that includes with Social Security, how much you can spend would be about 142,000 on average. Okay. But on median, it's about 68,000. So one of the things you're going to do, we're going to do this with expenses also, is you have the ability to now compare yourself and your current status against what average and means are for income and expenses. Let's talk a little bit more about retirement incomes. So ways to manage income at this age is you can work longer, or you can simply decide never to retire or work for yourself, something along that line. You could conceivably get promoted where you are, or get into a side gig that leverages your talents and knowledge. That might be fun. You could join a new company altogether, one that perhaps values your experience and expertise and pays better. And if you're a team of two retirees and you're both working, husband and wife say, or siblings perhaps, you could stagger your retirements to maintain your health insurance and your investments with employer plans. And employer plans have less administrative cost, and they usually have matching, which is basically free money to the employee. And if you're spending correctly, you can put more of your money into these employment plans, and a lot of those are also tax exempt. So there's some real advantages there. Net worth investments, what you have, we assume from that they are protected, not a chance for great loss on them, that you're earning enough. People scoff at 3 to 5%, but sometimes 5 is fine. And the more you do in these arenas to help your income, and the sooner you do it, the better. So Social Security is a big part of this. It's about 30% of an average retirement income. Right now in 2023, 67 million people are drawing Social Security. Of that, 49 million were the wage earners who are now retired. In 2023, it's 1827 on average per each of those 67 million benefit drawers. It bears mentioning that Social Security has struggled to keep up with cost of living increases, and so over time, its purchasing power has eroded. And current workers, we're going to be okay through 2034 is the forecast, but after that, any new retirees are looking at less benefits. So let's take a look at the expense side of the equation. Again, another eye chart, and I apologize. And I'll tell you where to get this in reality so you can get your hands on it and read it. Anyway, this is the expenses. And if you look at the column to the left, in 2023, the average expenses was 70,000. Okay, remember the average income was 75. Okay, so you've got some leftover net disposable income in that particular arena. If this is the same data source as before, if we look at it from the standpoint of where money is being spent, rent and mortgage is only about 17%. So that kind of makes some sense because most people want to be done paying for homes when they're retired. 67% goes to needs, things like paying your taxes, transportation, medical, utilities, and food, which leaves about 16% for discretionary expenses. That's not a lot for retirement. So maybe there's some things that need to be done in the higher cost items. This is again another opportunity for you to track your results against these averages and to determine are you in or out. And again, the right-hand uh, table, not table, the right-hand graph, it demonstrates where the mean is. It's between 2 and 4K per month in terms of expenses, and the average is much higher than that. It's up around 7,000 per month. So again, that's that skewed economic look. So let's look at a couple of ways we can address expenses. So one is just eat out less often. Do more backyard barbecues. The more self-service you can do, the less you pay for the service part of things you buy. If you've got expenses, and let's say you think they're out of line, try and tackle the one that is the largest first and see if there's something that you can do there and follow the Pareto rule. Don't go for the little savings, go for the ones that are really costing you. This might look like a mortgage refinance to you. It might look like getting your utility usage in line, more moderate, and maybe you're going to have to do a little modernization to do that. So take a look and see what you can do. Generally, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not that you can't do something, but incremental is the way to think of how you're going to improve this. Now, the real big expenses are, it's really nice to be retired and not be paying a mortgage. So if you can be off the mortgage and have your home paid for, that's a good goal. Your children really should be off the family payroll at that point. That also is a burden you shouldn't carry into retirement. And where you're located may or may not be the best cost of living scenario for your retirement. So you might want to think about, do I need to move? Or am I comfortable here and I can sustain my retirement the way I want to at this cost of living? And again, the more you do, the sooner you do it, the better results will be for you. So let's just sum up a little bit. Access and quality of retirement may be in decline. There's definitely indications there. The popular press, who tends to really grab onto bad news, is, talking in these terms a lot. Fiscal discipline is an integral part of achieving your goals. A lot of your goals will involve, expenses that you want to engage and a lifestyle that you want to pursue. A plan, you need to have one of those, and you need to build it so that it supports the retirement that you want to enjoy. And you have every reason to run your own current income and net worth statement now and take a look at where you are and what you're going to have to do to achieve the fulfillment in retirement that you're looking for. Now, we have a newsletter on the website called Renaissance in Retirement Economics. And you can find that on the website, lifelongfulfillment.com, in addition to this podcast. Now we're going to move over to our discussion with Cynthia Johnson. And this is the point in our program where we engage in other perspectives, particularly those of people leading self-directed lives, pursuing their version of lifelong fulfillment. Today we have Cynthia Johnson, owner of Rendezvous Press Media. Welcome, Cynthia.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Great to have
Thank you for having me.
Now, Cynthia, Rendezvous Press Media, you're the US head of World Art Day. You're into music, you're into art. And I know you've had career before that, and you're a very busy person. So maybe what you could do is share a little bit about how you got here, and what your thinking was, what you're currently doing, and some of the particulars, how it works for you.
Okay. Well, my current projects right now that have my main focus are Rendezvous Press Media, which is an independent press located in Carrizozo, New Mexico. I focus on art and photography and writing and music. The goal of Rendezvous Press is to be a meeting point for myself and for artists who have identified their own goals and who are wanting to pursue those professionally, but maybe are not geared either skill set wise or personality wise to do the marketing and or administrative end of some of the tasks that are required to move you professionally forward in those endeavors. And so it's a dream come true scenario for me because I work with people that I like on work that I like. And if we don't match that way, then that's a job I don't choose to take. But often this is the rendezvous point. So that's where the name of the company came from. I'm also beginning Lumina Arts Foundation, which is a foundation that is designed to excuse me, help artists specifically, but also to promote the arts. That's got an international set of goals, a national plan, and we're starting locally. So that's something where I get to look at it a little bit from a philanthropic standpoint in the sense that it's a nonprofit organization, but it's a way where I get to contribute back to the community and in an area that I love. I personally feel like the visual arts is a language through which people can communicate from a lot of different perspectives, and I'm interested in participating in that. My my prior career was in government work, and I got to work in all three branches of government. That was a really interesting and beneficial time for me as a person and also in my career. So I am deeply thankful for that time. And I was also really ready to move into something that was more self-directed when I made that choice. So I moved to when I ended that, I moved to California intending to go to grad school. Didn't wind up doing that and entered into art on a professional level where I'd always been involved as the collector and as a participant, but made that my professional focus. And that was ballpark 12 years ago. It's been a wild, wonderful ride.
Sounds it. uh, yeah. So, in changing like that, those are some fairly radical changes from government employment to art and then into owning your own business, which I know you did in LA as well. Art gallery, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And now doing what you're doing. Um, how did you come to realize that was your vision for your next phase of life?
Well, when I exited the private the job, I got a space that was intended originally to be an art studio. It was really large. So I was able to do a couple of shows without really the intention of starting a gallery. It's just that I had some friends who were looking to present some work. I had the space, so we did it. It turned out well. And then people kept coming back and saying, hey, would you like to do a project with me? Could you help me with this or that? The space was unique in that it was large and it had some really big overhead doors. So it allowed sculptures to come in that were really challenging in lesser physical locations.
Mhm. Right.
And so it was kind of this wonderful combination of I was in a position to do it in very practical terms, but there was some magic that came in terms of introductions from people and the way, I would say the universe rolled out the red carpet for me in a way that was really beautiful. But it wasn't like a long flip and I could see miles ahead. It was 2 feet at a time, and I took the next step and then the
Right.
next step and then the next step. So the space, it was a combination of the space and my willingness to um, be really uncomfortable a few
Yeah,
times
you took a chance.
doing things that I knew how to do in reality but didn't have practical experience with, and then gaining the practical experience through walking it out. We had a couple of shows that did really well, and I wound up converting a big section of that space into a gallery and pursuing that specifically rather than as the next step of how it came about.
Okay. Now, is Rendezvous Press Media like that, or is it a little different, would you say?
Rendezvous Press Media was different in the sense that it is a very specifically planned business in the sense that I wrote a business plan ahead of time for this one,
Uh-huh.
and the similarity is that it came about because I was able to do things that were needed that didn't make sense for larger companies. Um, so for example, some friends who were writing poetry, and that's a very hard thing to get published, very challenging thing to get published in the big houses because their goal sets are different. And what doesn't make sense on scale for them can make sense on smaller scales. So, for example, an initial run of 300 books is never ever going to happen at a
Sure. Right.
big publishing house.
Yeah, not enough money involved.
Right, right. But and that's legit. I don't feel criticism about that. It's a different mechanism. But
Sure.
here we've been able to do some of those small runs because the goals were different. We didn't need to make salaries for 3,000 people. We needed to make a book that made sense. And I love doing that stuff and wanted to be able to do that. Now, I'm interested in working with people who know what their goals are. Um, I'm not the right person for somebody saying, "Hey, I want to do something, but I'm not quite sure what." That's I'll say, "Hey, I love your work. Let me know when you know what you want to do."
Right.
Because the process for social media and for making sure that you don't wind up with a garage that's got 300 books still in it 6 years later
Right.
is specific, and so we want to create a success path for that.
Yeah. So in all of this, it sounds very thoughtful, like you really thought about what you were doing. Did you ever run into any big problems and have to deal with those? I mean, a move
Yeah,
out to
makes sense.
LA is a pretty big jump.
Yeah, absolutely. When I left, I was in Michigan. When I left Michigan to go to LA that time, my personal life went through a pretty radical change that I wasn't anticipating, and that was a challenge. And uh, I've had a couple of health concerns along the way that were challenging and caused me to really have to say, hey, what's it going to take care of myself so that I have the bandwidth to do these professional things that I want to do. Also, COVID shifted my plans dramatically. There, I, that was, that's not a happy thing for anybody, but the silver lining in it for me in part was it slowed down everything to the degree that I really reevaluated where I wanted to go next. And there were some really good things that came from that for me. So yeah, there have been challenges along the way.
Sounds like you're managing them really well.
I think everybody's probably had that at some times. And I mean, one of the reasons that I like the lifelong fulfillment process so much is because there are resources there that talk about different seasons and different segments of life. And that's the way my life has rolled out. So,
Right. Well, the one thing that I think we all find is that, you know, as we wind up in these later life careers and enterprises, is that it took time for us to learn basic things
yeah,
when we were younger, and to expect, perfection at a very young age is a difficult thing to deliver because there's things you don't know, and don't know that you need.
yes,
So it takes time, and fortunately, we get to talk to people at various stages of life on the program
yeah,
and, demonstrate that very
yeah,
thing. Somebody in their mid 40s is working pretty hard for family, income, retirement, and all of those things. So yeah, it's different at every age as well.
yeah.
Are there any specific authorities or people you look to or philosophies that you found very useful in your progress to hear?
Yeah, I would say I read a lot. There have been some authors that were really impactful for me. One of those authors is Viktor Frankl. I came across Viktor Frankl probably 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Um, and he he's most known in the United States for a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Um, and he just talked about the the difference largely between people who do well and those who don't are the ones that realize that there's a meaning beyond themselves. He developed a psychological protocol called logotherapy that I became very interested in. And in this context, the meaning of logo is meaning. So it's a meaning-based therapy.
Okay.
Um, and I gained a lot from the study of that. Actually, when I left government to go to grad school, it was because I was wanting to pursue a logotherapy application in the professional environment for the legislature. Um, and Pepperdine had a dual master's in alternative dispute resolution and public administration. And so that was where I was headed. But I
Mhm.
was specifically interested in hanging out a shingle and working with legislators who had entered that role with good service intentions and just needed to be reminded of the reasons why. Because I think in that environment, but in all environments, we tend to in the course of pursuing success outcomes, sometimes lose our sense of why we're doing what we're doing. And and there's a portion of folks who will continue that way. There's a
Right.
section of people who will, with just some simple reminders, say, oh yeah, oh yeah, I'm not here to win as defined as just winning at a game. I'm here to win by achieving my service goal, whatever that was.
Right. Right.
Well,
Sounds like
I ultimately determined to start working in a different sector.
yeah.
But that is still very much in my mind, very much in my heart, although the vocabulary has changed somewhat. So Viktor Frankl was pretty meaningful. There's a author, M. Scott Peck, who is very meaningful in my life, and an author, Madeline L'Engle. Those are three.
Right.
There's been many more, but those are three that
Okay.
pretty big impacts on me.
Well, good. Good. I think that also demonstrates that, we don't all come into life having all the answers,
Mhm.
and our gut feeling or intuition is not always as well informed. So we have to look to other experts and other resources, and hopefully of a factual sort of nature that really can help us
Yeah,
improve our process.
yeah.
So, well,
I, I
listen. Oh, no, go ahead, please.
I had a couple of bosses that were very, very excuse me, very helpful to me along the way too. And I look. It's funny because at the time you go through stuff like that, and there were some challenges in terms of being asked to do things that were very uncomfortable
Right.
at the time. And I look back on it and say, wow, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Did
Yeah.
not feel like it at the time, but in
Right.
fact was.
Yeah.
So
A real growth experience, it sounds
yeah,
like. Yeah.
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 And people who stood with me through those experiences and helped me. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Well, a little bit about our initiative with lifelong fulfillment.
Yeah.
This is a chance for you, if you have any comments about that or any other things that you think you want to with the audience, please take this moment to share that with us.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things I like about what you're doing. A couple that were really standouts to me was my respect for the lifelong aspect of what you were talking about, that this is not a one and done way of dealing with life. Um, but for those who are willing to put in the effort, it's so worth it to know yourself and to um, allow changes as you're developing. And I think that this, excuse me, this process very much encourages that, and then gives you just an incredible list of resources that you've aggregated. It's amazing. Um, for me, since kind of looking at this again, I returned to a couple of things that I had known from long ago, but in a couple of new things that I found in your material, new to me things. And interestingly, it is about an internal process of knowing yourself and understanding yourself, but it's really, even for me in the last couple of weeks, helped me in regards to how I've related with some other folks to remember, um, just for example, I did Myers-Briggs many, many, many years ago, but having reviewed that in the recent couple of weeks, I was like, wow, that stayed pretty true for me.
Yeah.
But it's helped me in reminding me that sometimes when I'm in conversations with other folks whose personalities are different, that some of that what feels like conflict is just simply a difference in communication. Not always. From time to time, we meet people who do not have goodwill toward one another, and that's one thing to deal with. But generally, people I have goodwill if we can understand one another. So, um, definitely in terms of my own personal fulfillment, but actually really good practical business help too. And it's both there. It's there for both reasons.
Oh,
So,
great, great. Well, thank you for that.
yeah,
Uh, well, I want to say, Cynthia, it's really a pleasure to have your insights and to get those shared with our audience today. We wish you continued luck in all your endeavors, and thanks so much for joining us on Vision in Action Live today.
my pleasure, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, everyone, that's our show for today. Thanks for joining us at Vision in Action Live. Again, these are broadcast every 2 weeks, and we will provide notification online for that. Uh, Please go to the website for any of the podcasts, newsletters, and other information that you might seek. Again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.